Over the last few sections, we have seen different configurations about fetching data using the React query hook. What is also common is fetching data by ID. So for example, we have a list of posts right here. A user might want to click on one particular post and get taken to a post detail page to see more information about this one particular post. So to do that, there are a couple of things that we have to do. The first one is we have to create a post details page. Okay, so let us call it RQ post details page. Also take note that this is a singular post. Okay, so this is step one. Step two could be configuring the route for the newly created page. So what do we mean by this? So this particular page could have a different URL. The URL could be something like, and let me put this inside of a bracket. So the URL for this particular post details page could be something like rq-posts, okay, similar to what we have right here, and slash, and right here we can have the post ID, right? This could be 1, 2, 3, 500, 1000, whatever, right? And thirdly, we just need to wrap this particular element with an anchor tag, which when clicked on will take the application to this particular URL. Okay, so the third step would be something like wrapping each item with the anchor tag. All right, that is it. So let us now quickly create the RQ post details page. So to do that, I'm just going to come inside of the components folder and I can say something like post details rq.js. And inside of here, I'm going to use the same snippet and we can call this post details RQ page. We don't really want this import. All right, so the first step is done. The second step is we have to configure the route for the newly created page. So to do that, I'm going to come down to the app.js file. So what we're going to do right now does require a little bit of knowledge about the React Router DOM package right here. But if you do not know it, don't worry, I'll explain it to you. So come down here. So we already have 3 routes right here, right? So when we go to the home page, this is the route path. And when we go to the traditional posts page, we have the /posts. And when we go to the RQ posts page, we have the RQ-posts, right? And that is what we have here as well as here. Whenever this particular URL is visited, this component gets mounted onto the DOM. So in addition to these 3 routes, we also want to add another route right here. So we can say route exact path, and inside of here, we decided that we will have this to be the path param. So rq-posts /rq-posts / and to specify the post ID, we can put a colon right here and then say post ID. That's it. And inside of this element, we are supposed to put in the post details page that we have just created. And this has been imported here as well. All right. So now if I were to go to, let's say /1, you can see that this text, which we were returning from the details page, is getting rendered. So it doesn't matter if I go to 1, 2, 5,000, whatever, the same thing is going to get rendered. All right, let's come back. So step 2 is done. Let's look at the step 3. We have to wrap each item in this list with the anchor tag so that when it is clicked on, it goes to the respective post ID. For example, if the third item were to be clicked on, then the URL should point to rq-posts /3. So let us see how to do that. So come back to the posts RQ page. So this is where we are rendering the entire item. I'm now going to wrap this entire item with the link component that React Router DOM provides. So let me first go ahead and import it at the very top. So I'm going to say import link from React Router DOM. You can see that it auto completes it as well. So now I'm going to use this and wrap this entire item. So coming down here, I can say link, and then I'm going to move this entire div inside of here. And finally, we also have to specify where the application should be taken to when this particular item is clicked on. So I'm going to use a string literal right here. And first off, I'm going to say posts. So I'm just going to use the same thing, right? So we have to say /rq-posts. And right here, I can use the dynamic symbol right here. And then I can say post.id. Because remember, each object is going to have the ID property inside of that. All right. So now let us actually give this a whirl. So if I were to click on the second item, you can see that it goes to the second post ID page. The third step is done. So what is the next step? So whenever a particular post item is clicked on, this particular post details page will typically have access to the post ID. So using this post ID, we have to make a query with this particular ID, fetch all of the details for this one particular post, and then list it inside of this component. So this is the topic of this section, querying by ID using React Query. So let us actually see how to do that. So let's come down here, and we know that use query is always going to give you a response. And let us now actually go ahead and import use query here as well. And inside of here, you know that this requires a minimum of 2 properties. The first thing is the query key. So the first property of the query key could be posts, and the second one could be, let's say, 1 or 2 or 3. So this value needs to be dynamic. This value needs to be calculated based on this particular post ID in the URL. So the good news is React Router DOM gives you access to this particular post ID, whatever is currently being viewed inside of this component. So to access that, you just need to import this useParams hook right here. And let's invoke this. And this is going to return us an object. And inside of this object, we actually get access to this particular post ID. So let me copy this post ID, put it inside of here. So let me log it in the console just to make sure that we are actually indeed getting it. We don't really need this, so let's comment it out. Now let's go to the browser. And if I were to click on, let's say, the third one, you can see that we have 3 logged right here. If I were to go to the first one, you can see that 1 is being logged right here. So we do get access to the post ID right here. So let me remove this, uncomment this out, and we can just replace this 3 with the post ID. That's it. And similar to what we did with the posts RQ page, we do need all these different data to properly list out this particular page. So let me destructure and extract all these different data. We might also want these 2 blocks of code. So let me copy it, put it down here. And next up, let us work on the final data UI. So I'm just going to destructure a few things like the title and the body from the data. All right, so let us quickly build this out. So I'm just going to wrap this with a div, and I'm going to add a very simple class name here saying that post details dash container. And inside of here, we want 2 divs. So the first div is something that holds the title, and the second div is going to hold the body. We can add class names for both of these elements. So I'm just going to copy this particular class name, put it here, and then change the container to title. And similarly, I'm going to change this particular keyword to body. And do not worry about the styles. All these styles have been provided at the very start in the starter project. So as long as you have this particular file copy pasted in your application, as long as you match these particular class names, everything should work fine. So let me save this file, go to the page. Right now you can see that, oh, it says missing query function because we've not actually done the fetching yet. So let's add the query function right here. Instead of actually putting the function right here, like how we did it the last time, I'm going to define it outside in a separate file. But for now, I'm just going to define it at the very top. So I can say something like fetch post details, and I can create an arrow function. And this is where we do the Axios fetch, similar to what we did previously. And fortunately, fetching just one particular item from our list right here is extremely easy with JSON server. I'll show you what I mean. So the JSON server is currently running on port 4000. So let us actually go to this URL and you can see the list of posts. JSON server also makes it very easy to query just one item by ID. So if I were to say posts/2, you can see that only the second item is displayed. If I were to say that I need the post with the ID of 3, it is going to give you the third object. So JSON server out of the box matches this particular thing with this ID value and queries that one particular item from the list. So let us make use of this in our fetching function. So let's come down here. Let us also import Axios as well. And we can say get, and let's post this particular URL. And we need to make this dynamic. So we can go ahead and change it into string literal, make this dynamic, and we can actually get the post ID from here. Perfect. Let's create a simple arrow function, say fetch post details, and then pass in this particular post ID inside of there. And that is it. Let's save the file, go back to the browser, and you can see that we only see the details of the first post right here. So if I were to go to the second post, you can see that we only see the information about the second post. And also notice that every single query is considered as a separate query because we're also passing in the post ID inside of here. Right now, the first post and the second post queries are cached. So if I were to now go to the third post, it is not actually going to pull from this particular cache because React query knows that this is a completely different query. Post, 1 is a completely different query. So differentiating each query with the post ID key here becomes very important. If we do not provide a unique query key for each ID, React query cannot differentiate between each query. So if I were to click on this first item, it is going to be put in cache. And if I come back and if I click on the second item, for a brief second, it is still going to be showing this first item because it thinks that it is the same query. So it is going to pull from the cache. So showing incorrect data is not a good user experience. So everything works as expected. In the next section, let us look at a very common scenario in building applications called pagination.